Now, we're not going to see this anymore, a white loaf, because of course all the bread that we can purchase from our bakers now is our national loaf, a much browner loaf than our white bread that we've been so used to. Now, many people are wondering why this is that we can only purchase our national loaf. Well, it's all down to this, the wheat berry. Now, before the war, only 70% of the wheat berry was extracted when the wheat was milled to make flour. And most of our flour that was produced was white, which of course went to make our white loaf. But on the 11th of March, the Ministry of Food decided that 85% of the wheat berry had to be extracted when it was milled to make flour. And of course that has produced our national wheat meal flour. Of course they've been able to use up their existing white flour using just a quarter to 75% wheat meal flour. But since the 6th of April, the only bread that bakers have been able to produce is this, our national loaf and other proprietary brown loaves. But if you knew a few facts, I'm sure we'd all have a much more enthusiastic approach to what is our new delicious national loaf. Now, firstly, our national loaf is much better for us. Doris Grant, the nutritionalist, actually calls white bread dead food. She says that the vitamin B, which is so good for us, is destroyed when white flour is produced, and that our national loaf is still full of vitamin B, as well as other vitamins and minerals that our national wheatmeal flour has been fortified with. Some have even claimed that the low birth rate for 72 years was due to the fact that we've been predominantly eating white flour, and a scientist test showed the guinea pigs fed on the white bread were docile and languid, but those fed on wholemeal bread leapt out of their baskets and frightened the audience. They had so much more energy. Pat a cake, baker's man. Bake me some wheatmeal as fast as you can. It builds up my health and it tastes so good. I find that I like it, eating just what I should. But it's not just that our national loaf is better for us than our white loaf, it's also better for the country. Much of that grain that we mill into flour comes from our allies overseas. By extracting 85% of that grain, we can make 13% more £6 loaves of bread. We're saving enough wheat annually to produce all the bread for the entire nation for 7 whole weeks. Any mouldy bread is a waste to the nation's war effort. Let's look at how best to keep our national loaf. To avoid wasting bread, never try to slice it when it's just been baked. Always leave it for 24 hours before slicing. Keep it in a crock or a pan that's well ventilated to allow the air to circulate. And when putting it in the pan, wrap it in a clean linen cloth first, and then cover that cloth with another damp tea towel. Do make sure that the damp towel doesn't touch the bread itself, but by doing this, this will ensure that the bread doesn't dry out and that the crust doesn't go hard. Whenever we look through our stocks, as we often have to do with a frown, we come across bits and pieces of stale bread. We've always thought of these as a perpetual nuisance. No one remembers how they got in the bin. They accumulate like those mysterious pins that find their way into little bowls on the mantelpiece. I've given up the struggle against those pins, but with odds and ends of stale bread, it is a very different matter indeed. There should be no nuisance in a larder. So let us take out our crusts and crumbs, put them on a wooden board and think. Stale bread like this can soak up moisture easily and can be used in savoury and sweet puddings and bakes, like the savoury oatmeal bake. It can be cut into dice or figures and put to dry in a cooling down oven to make rusks or cereals such as these wheatmealies. Or it can be spread with jam and making desserts like this rhubarb bread pudding. But do remember, just half a slice of bread wasted each day by everyone would be wasting a shipload of wheat every 12 days, which could be taking munitions and men to our fighting front. Don't waste bread.